Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And earlier, Peter Osvaldik presented at a conference, and I wasn't able to tune in right at the time that the conference took place, but I did catch the replay. So I'll have some updates for you guys in today's video. So what I wanted to tie into this video is because they also sort of discussed this during the conference is this new partnership that was announced yesterday for T-Mobile for Business. So T-Mobile and Achios, I hope I said that right, team up to bring 5G advanced network solutions to U.S. government. Now, this is not the biggest deal in the world, but in order for T-Mobile to win, in order for T-Mobile to grow into the carrier that they want to become, that they believe they can become, the competitor that we need them to become, they got to chip. They got to chip away at percentages and at growth. And that means in order for them to get any government contract, no matter the size, big or small, they got to at least get the network into the bases. And some of these military bases don't just necessarily stop at, the city level. They also have offsite bases in more remote areas where T-Mobile does lack coverage. So they got to get into these bases and they got to bring coverage. T-Mobile calls it customer-driven coverage. And in these areas, anybody that works there that's in the service, they, a lot of them use T-Mobile. T-Mobile has great deals, especially for service members, 50% off. So T-Mobile has to at least get onto those places to be able to bring service to further take some of these contracts. There's so many different divisions and employers throughout these military bases that use, cellular service for their business that I'm sure and positive if adequate coverage is provided, T-Mobile can pull some of these contracts. It's not just directly with the government. It's also some of these contractors that are contracted by the government that use, cellular devices and that hand out cellular devices throughout the bases to their employees. So that's a advancement that T-Mobile can also make. So this is not as big, but this is also very important in order for T-Mobile to chip away at the leadership that Verizon and AT&T have gained over the years in scenarios like these remote bases out there. So that's part of what they talked about in the conference today, that government will be an important piece to T-Mobile's puzzle to fill out the growth that they want to obtain and the guidance that they gave last year up until 2025. So Peter Osvaldik was very confident, as he should be. Of course, he's not going to come in anything negatively, but he said they're kind of sort of in the driver's seat now. Not necessarily that they're already in the leadership, they are number one, but they are in the driver's seat in terms of execution. The plan is set forth and they're executing it, and everything that they put out, they're hitting it. Any guidance, the network expansion in terms of the POPs of mid-band, all of that is going beautifully, he says. It's going according to plan. The network decommissioning of the Sprint side is going according to plan, and the Sprint Keep sites being converted to T-Mobile site builds also going very according to plan. So that's good of him to say, and good to hear. I wouldn't expect anything else, of course, but the fact that they can say that confidently means that it must be happening at the expected rate and pace that they guided for last year. Now, what's important here, as they get most of the spectrum on air, which 225 million people cover with midband, that's already a good amount. They get to 260, maybe a little more by the end of year, depending. And then they get to 300 million by the end of 2023. Now, he did say, he was questioned about the lowering of the capex in the outer years, 2024, 25, maybe 23 as well. And he said that a majority of the network build is going to be completed this year. So keep that in mind. Majority of the network build done this year. That's why they put forth more capex. They pulled capex from 23 and they brought more of it into 2022 because of their momentum. He said the momentum was there and it just really called for the acceleration. So their build pace, according to him, did increase and will continue to increase for the remainder of the year. Of course, there'll be some months and weeks where there might be some weather conditions that they may not be able to work in, such as winter in some of these areas. The winter gets really harsh and they won't be able to do anything of much. But right now, during these summer days, they can really accelerate. So I expect, this month, next month, August, I expect them to really accelerate any other build plans that they still have left out to do and to really aggressively continue that build out for the remainder of the year. Now, one thing that he did say that was very interesting was the rule of play. And like I said, sometimes you just have to listen to the numbers. If the numbers are met every time that they guide, and they're telling us these numbers every quarter, they must be hitting them, and they must be closing in on hitting their guidance. So he said around 30% of the 775 submarkets that they have categorized into rural small markets, they compete in today. 30%. That means they have distribution. That means they have a network that they consider to be competitive. Now, he said by the end of the year, again, like I said a bit earlier in the video, a large part of the build out will be completed this year, according to him. He said by the end of the year, they expect to compete in 55% of the 775 rural and small markets, according to what they have categorized. 55. So that means that's a 25% jump of network and retail distribution. Remember, they said they will only compete, or they will only allow to compete in areas that they have an adequate network, that they feel is strong enough to compete. And if you remember Mike Sievert saying in another conference not too long ago, they have acknowledged that if they can't cover one road going to the factory, they don't win. And that's true. I've said that in plenty of videos. I've said it on chats. I've said it in groups. I said if there is one road in a rural town that is not covered, that people frequent, that where people work at, where people visit, they will go back to the carrier they had. And I promise you, T-Mobile has tested this in other scenarios and in some of the rural areas that they do compete in now, or even before this push. And I can guarantee you the churn was high. And they immediately noticed that customer that switches churns and goes back to what they previously had and what they know works. That immediately happens. Especially in those parts, it's much harder because perception is already negative, and it's a tight-knit community. So word of mouth travels very fast in these areas. So, like I said, it looks like all the plans are going according to their planning. The 775 submarkets that they have categorized, that's going to be, according to them, that's going to be very, very swift. They'll have to bring, in some of those parts, he did mention they'll have to bring more awareness in terms of when he was questioned about marketing dollars and how is that approach for additional acceleration in fixed wireless access growth in some of those sub markets, smaller markets. And he did say they will have to bring further awareness to those markets, like, hey, we're here, We have this competitive network. We offer this product. This is our pricing. So they'll have to find unique ways to market in those areas to bring more customers on board. I think they will accomplish it because that's what they're good at. If there's anything that I know about T-Mobile, they are good at marketing, and they don't mind being different, unique, creative when it comes to marketing on how to approach certain markets. They don't mind talking to individuals in the market and seeing what works and what doesn't work or what won't work. So that's pretty much just a summary that I wanted to give you guys of what was discussed today. There were some other few financial numbers that were given. The ARPU is set for T-Mobile per guidance to increase by 1%, and ARPA is guided and expected to grow by 2%. Those are pretty big growth numbers for T-Mobile. T-Mobile hasn't grown ARPU in like the last 12 years. So that's a big achievement. So that means they're turning that growth into profits. So they're getting accounts in big numbers, and they're likely upselling them in several ways. They're upselling them to Magenta Max. They're upselling smartwatches, tablets. They're upselling home internet. So there's plenty of stuff that T-Mobile's upselling to increase the ARPU and the ARPA. So the ARPU is likely coming from an upgrade to the Magenta Max, right? If you guys recall, and I don't know if that's still accurate, but there are other ways of increasing to the Magenta Max. So if you have 4 lines, say on just a regular Magenta, you are able to, if that's still the case, I'll have to check. You are able to up one of the lines into the Magenta Plus or Magenta Max by paying $10 or $20 extra or whatever the number is. And then just that line itself is on the higher plan or higher feature of those plans. So that's another way to upsell and increase the ARPU as well. And then, of course, working through the Sprint base. Sprint was the lower end in the industry of ARPU. So now you're working that base, you're migrating them, you're upselling them. They had the lowest amount of lines too in the industry on average when they were around. So now you're adding, okay, can we add a line 3? Can we do 4? Can we, they're working all of this. T-Mobile's working the numbers, they're running the statistics, and they're looking to do this aggressively, effectively, but also at the same time still making profits and, of course, doing what's best for the business at this time. So let me know what you think about this in the comment section down below. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe to the channel. Follow my social media outlets for more updates and interactions. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. I will see you in the next one. Peace.